tried to knit a sample of an Afghan square called Turnpike. You'll find a link for the pattern in the description below. It's a little hard to explain, but the idea is that you have these strands that go across. For the first two stripes, I tried to follow the method given in the pattern. I knit the border, then I knit one stitch with contrasting yarn. I keep this yarn behind and I'll slip 2 stitches. And then I move this yarn in front and between the needles as if to purl, but I don't purl, I just slip the 2 stitches. Then I move it behind again as if to knit, but I don't knit, I just slip the 2 stitches and so on, moving it back and forth in between the needles, in between the stitches. I'm at the last stockinette stitch, so I knit that. And now the pattern has me do a strange thing. The main yarn is all the way over here. It's on this side. And here I am at the other side, and they wanted me to knit these 2 stitches using a separate ball of yarn. So what I did, I took the strand from the outside of the yarn ball and I knit these 2 going this way, and then I turned it and I knit them back going this way. So here's the yarn from the other end of the ball, the second ball in a sense. I'll explain the details of color changes later. Knit the last 2 stitches with this yarn, and then turn and knit those stitches again. And now it's time to purl the light color. Okay, so I did 1 purl stitch to secure it, but I'm not purling the rest. I'm slipping it the same way I slipped it last time. So this strand is in front, so I'm going to keep it in front while I slip these 2. This is on the wrong side. And I forgot to tighten it up. What I think I should have done was tighten up that yarn, that strand that goes across. I think I should have tightened it up before I knit that one, but I guess it's not too late. Let's see. Stretch this out a little bit, and then, yeah, I guess it's okay. Oh well. The instructions do not tell you to tighten it up, and I think that might be a tactical mistake. Alright, so I've got the yarn in front, I'm going to slip these 2. And back and forth as before. Slip 2, and now it's time to purl this one, but now's when I think I should tighten up that strand. So I'm going to kind of stretch this out, and then pull this a little, and then stretch this out again. And thereby, I hope I've adjusted the tension on the strand that I just worked across. Okay, now I will purl it. I'm done with this yarn for now, so I can just cut it and leave it in later. So I knit the last 2. There's 1. There's 2. Now I turn, and then I just continue with the main yarn until I get to the next stripes. Okay, so I knit, purled, knit. Didn't do any extra yarn carrying. These tails are driving me bonkers, so I'm going to sew them in. This is way too tight. I should have made it looser. Oh well. Okay, so here's variation number 1, my attempt to make it easier for myself. The last pair of rows before I go, I'm going to knit across as usual, so I'm just going to knit all the way to this side. I am not going to knit these last 2 stitches with some extra strand. I used the main strand and I did 2 short rows. I didn't wrap and turn this time, I did on the second stripe. This gave me the extra pair of rows that I would have gotten had I used the extra piece of yarn. I work across the wrong side, turn, I want to pick up the new strand. I'm going to clip it to the edge of my work, like that. The next yarn is kind of low contrast. And then I'll knit this one. And then I'll do the slipping and okay, so now I turn. I've already knit this out and knit it back with the main yarn as short rows. So now I purl this one, and then I do the slipping thing again. And once again, I forgot to fix the tension before knitting a stitch. I really need to handwrite that into the instructions. I need that reminder. It's not good enough to leave that out. It's not something I remember. It's something I need. Okay, so now I'm gonna knit the last two because these are my edge stitches and they're in garter stitch. Now I turn. I'm gonna work across to here and come back. So let's see how that turned out. This didn't work out. This left a hole. I should have done a wrap and turn here. Let me try something different this time. These are really experiments. I'm knitting one below to begin this second stripe. Then I'm continuing, just weaving back and forth as usual. I finally remembered to adjust the floats before I knitted this stitch. After securing the stitch, I did a wrap and turn with the accent color. And then slipped and wove back in the usual way. So, knitting across in the usual way. I'm putting the wrap back on the needle and knitting it together with the wrapped stitch. Now I need to do the short row, and then I'll do a wrap and turn. Work the second short row, and then work back across. Picking up the wrap and working it together with the stitch when I come to it. I've done my two turnpike stitches, and I'm done with this color. I'll just take this clip off. These are too tight. I don't like that they're too tight, even though I did do the tension in the second one. The second one's a little bit better than the first. Ah well. I'll try a pseudo inlay technique for this stripe. So I've started this row the way it has in the instructions. I'm going to clip this onto the side here. What I've seen is that they don't do any anchoring stitches necessarily, but I'm going to knit one below. And now I'm going to do the inlay thing. So for the inlay thing, I'm going to take two strands of this. I'm going to take a loop and stretch it across, and I'm going to weave the loop back and forth as I knit the next row. That way, my working yarn will end up over here so that I can do the stitches over here with my regular working yarn, and I don't need a separate ball or anything. And I'm not slipping stitches and then slipping them back. That was making me a little crazy. Yeah, I know, maybe I'm a little crazy anyway. Alright, so here's my loop. So I've knit that stitch, and now I'll knit two more stitches. Okay, now I want this to strand across the back. I'm not sure whether I want it to go under the working yarn or over the working. I am just going to do the easiest thing, which is to make it go over the working yarn. Like that. I am going to try to be careful to have the working end of this be on top, and to have the part that's attached to this stitch be on the bottom, so that the two strands weave like that. The top strand is attached to the ball, and the bottom strand is attached to this stitch. So that's good, that's the way I want it. Make sure both strands are coming forward, and then I'll knit two more stitches. Instead of slipping them, I'm knitting them. Preferably without splitting yarn. There's one, there's two. I'm going to pause, and I'm going to bring these back. So I want to keep the top one on top. Is that supposed to be? No, that's the bottom one. I want to keep them. I want to keep the top one on top and bring them behind. When it goes behind, it's sort of going underneath the working yarn. I think that's okay. We'll find out. Now I'm going to knit 2 more. Now I'm going to bring these 2 forward. They just look. Yeah, they've gone straight. They haven't twisted or anything. They look okay to me. Now I'll knit 2 more. And I'll bring them to the back without twisting them. So far it looks okay. Knit 2 more. And now I want to knit the bottom strand. So this strand, because this strand is attached to the stitch. This strand is attached to the working yarn, so I'm going to pull that back out a little bit. So I want to kind of move that out of the way. Take the strand that's attached to the stitch, have my old yarn go across, bring this one up. I've left enough that I can hold it in my hand comfortably. And now I want to knit one below again, so I will do that by bringing up the parent and knitting the parent together with a regular stitch. And I failed. Let me undo that. I failed to adjust the tension. Yet again. I really need to write down these instructions. So I'm going to just spread it out a little bit and scrunch it up. Now I will knit the parent and the stitch together. So I haven't gained or lost any stitches. I've just made this stitch kind of go down a row. I'll take this yarn out to the side and I'll pick up the working yarn from below. And you see it's going through the loop. I think that's okay, but we'll find out when I get back around to it. Now I want to knit the last 2. There's 1. There's 2. And I'll let it go. Turn. Okay, so this is the working yarn that I'm going to have to secure when I get back here. This is the loop. So let me continue working with this yarn. Okay, now it's time to change colors again. Here's my working yarn. I brought it across. I took the yarn that goes to that stitch and I brought it up and over, same way I usually do, and that untangled this from this loop. I thought it was going to tangle it a second time instead of untangling it, but either way. Okay, now I want to purl this. And now comes the interesting part. Now I want to I don't want to weave this back. I want to get rid of this extra loop. So what I do is I take the working yarn, the part that's attached to the ball, and I pull it. And that pulls out the loose loop. So now I have 2 strands going across. I give them the right tension. And this is the yarn that I would have stranded back across, so when I get here I will work it in. I'll purl a stitch with it and I'll be done. Well, okay, I have to carry it up and all, but I'll be done with this row. And the result will be, except for my knitting one below, the result will be exactly what happened when I slipped all those stitches and then knit one and turned and knit one and worked back. We'll see. Let me purl it and then I'll turn it around and show you. I'm going to purl across with the main color. This is the wrong side of the work, so it's much easier than all the slipping. I like this so far. Okay, now this seems to be coming out of here, but I want it to strand across like the other one, so I'm just going to ignore it for now. Purl the last two in this color. Hold the old one across, bring the new one up from below, and purl. Hold the old one across, bring the new one, the main color, up from below. Trying to manage my yarns and untangle them. They tend to cling to each other because I'm using wool. And now I will slip that to the other side because I want to knit two. So there's knitting one, and there's knitting two. Let's see. Oh, let me turn it. Let's take a look. So, just like down here, I have a knit stitch stranded across, another knit stitch, these two, another knit stitch in the contrast color, knits across, and then these two. So basically I skipped the two rows where I was slipping. What is different is that when I slipped, I ended up with an extra 4 stitches here and an extra 4 stitches here. I 2 and then 2 again. I don't have that this time. I could do short rows, but I think the knitting one below took care of the need for having extra stitches at the edges. Anyway, I'm going to live with that. If it's a little short, then it's a little short. And if I really want it to be different, then I could slip the previous stitch for a row in the last wrong side row and get it even further down, and that should snug it up. I may try that when I come back. I will carry this yarn up the back until I need it again. I think I want to carry the yarn between the last purl and the next one, so I'm going to work this stitch. So I'm going to bring it around this way. I'm going to lift the yarn up towards the fabric side so that this goes around the back, like that. Now I'm ready for my strands. So, knit the first two. So there's one, there's two. And now I'm going to drop this way, pick this up behind, and now knit that one. This is the one I slipped, and I want to move it even further down by doing a knit one below. Time to explain this. In the original pattern, the anchoring stitches ended up above the line of the side-to-side stripe. I didn't like that, so I've been trying to knit one below and use other methods to move the anchoring stitches down a row. Like, oh, here's more extreme. Alright, so I slipped it and I knit it one below, and now I want to bring this over this way. I'm taking a long loop, bring them. I want to move them back and knit two. Picking up the bottom strand from below, I'm lifting the parent up onto the needle, and then I'll knit those two together. I failed to tension the yarn yet again. Let me do that. And what I want to do is pull the strand that's attached to the ball, and then kind of pull it out again so that it's not too tight. So there I have my two strands. I already adjusted the tension, so I didn't goof. Okay, I am now done with this yarn. I want to leave a tail and work it in later. Let's see how it looks. Okay, now I'm at that purl stitch. I'm going to bring my yarn here in front, which is the wrong side of the work, and I'm going to slip that stitch. And by doing so, later when I knit it, it should be lower down. It should be like the previous stitch. Okay, I'm probably trying to do too many things at once. So what I had done here was knit one below, and that, I think, shifted the stitch down a little bit. Like here, these two knit stitches are a little bit higher than the stranding. I guess I can see it here better. It's like the strands come across and then the knit stitches go up from there. And what I tried to do was drop this down one by knitting one below when I got here. So the question is, have I dropped it down far enough to balance it? Well, here it looks like this stitch is on the same level with this to me, and then it goes up. And here, kind of the same thing. It looks like it's on the same level and goes up. So I'm going to try dropping it down 2 levels. When I get to this column of stitches, I'm going to just slip this stitch. And when I get here, I'm going to slip this stitch. And then when I come back, I'm also going to knit one below, and I'm hoping that that will drop this pair of stitches down a little bit further. So we'll see what happens. This stitch is the one I'm going to knit with the other color when I come around again. So I'm purling, so I'm bringing my yarn to what is currently the front but is the wrong side of the fabric, and I'm going to slip that one. So this strand shouldn't show because it's on the wrong side. And then I will purl the rest of the way. The first stitch at the beginning and end, I knit one below. And here on the previous row, on the wrong side row, I slipped this stitch and this stitch in the main color. When I knit these 2 stitches in the contrasting color, I knit them one below, and my idea was I would move them down even further, which I think it did. When I look at this, it looks like this points right to the middle of those 2 stitches. I like that. So your choices might be different. Now here, if I didn't like this, I could do a knit one below and reduce this to 1 stitch that shows and let the white one be behind. Probably it's a personal preference thing. I just didn't like slipping all those stitches and doing the weird thing with the extra ball at this side. I thought it was a nice idea to do the short rows on the previous row and so on, but I don't think it worked out all that well because I had holes, so that was not a good solution. But it probably would have worked a lot better if I had done the short rows correctly. But I'm pretty happy with these last 2 where I used the inlay technique rather than the original directions. Okay, so here's my sample. You can really see that I made too many rows here. And also this is cinching in a little bit. So the knit one below and the combination of 2 was not so good, and I probably should have worked in an extra stitch somewhere or elongated one of these stitches to compensate. But I really like the basic idea of this pattern. I would never have learned about it except for the free pattern. I like my version better. I like the inlay technique better than the slipping, but other than that, I think it's pretty good. I hope that helps. I don't know if anybody's ever going to use this. I think it's kind of a cute pattern. I really like the stripes. I put too many rows between these. I put more rows between these than I did here. Oh well. So to change yarns, I want to take the yarn I've been using and kind of stretch it across. I'll show you the back. And then this is the yarn I'm picking up. I want to pick it up from underneath so that it comes around and over the top of the old yarn. So the old yarn's going to go like this, and the new yarn's going to come like this from where it was worked in to where it's going to be worked in. So it'll kind of lock in. The 2 will be twisted around each other. So here we go. I knit one with this color, keeping the strand in between. That would help if I actually knit it. There we go. Alright, so I knit one, and I will knit this, but first I'm going to take this yarn, bring it across, and pick up the new yarn, the yarn I'm changing to, and so I so it's coming around and over. So again, old yarn like this, new yarn like this. And now I will knit the last 2 stitches with this yarn. The old is going this way and the new yarn's going this way. Okay, I'm approaching where I need to work the yarn in, carry the yarn. So what I'm going to do is lift that yarn so it's going basically straight up, but bring it in front of the needle. I guess I'm bringing it over to the right, and then purl that stitch and then knit the last 2, and then we'll see if it's protruding into the front or not. Okay, so here it is, and I kind of locked it in there. I don't know if you can see that. I'll pull it back and forth a little bit so that you can see how it's locked under that strand. It's as if I sewed it under a purl bump. Okay, now I'll turn. And does it show in front? Where is it? Here it is. Now, that's the knit stitch. Where this is, it's not showing in front. On the right side row, I didn't do anything. Here on the wrong side row, I'm going to lift the contrast yarn in order to carry it so that I'm sort of stranding across the back. But I'm going to put it kind of in front then, so that it's on my side of the needle, so it stays on the wrong side and doesn't protrude through to the inside. Oh, I had forgotten to take that one off the needle. Okay, and then I will do this last purl. And again, in doing so, I will capture the yarn that way. I'm going to bring it, I don't want to bring it forward, but I'm going to bring it kind of over this needle maybe. So it's coming straight up behind this yarn. I'm draping it over that needle temporarily, and I'll knit this one. Tighten them up because my edges are always too loose. And now I'll let it go back, and I want to drop it to the back so that it doesn't twist up. And there it is. I have captured it in the purl bump between these first 2 stitches. Here's the yarn I've been knitting. I'm putting it across. I'm picking this up from behind, but I'm not working it, so I'm bringing it back down over this yarn. So I've kind of got, here's my working yarn, and here's the yarn I'm trying to capture. It's coming around the back, going down, and hanging down from behind. Alright, let's see if that works. I need this yarn in front. Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work. Well, we'll see, right? Gotta test it. So if I turn this, does it show? Less than before. I mean, if I pull this out, it shows, but if I leave these together... Okay, I did some research, and turns out that both ways I tried to do this are ways that people do it. So, in this case, I twisted it so that the strand loops from behind over and back. Some people seem to prefer that, and the way I did it before, I basically held this one up and stranded across the back, and some people do it that way. So you just have to twist the yarn together on the wrong side of the fabric, and that's what works. But also one person did it by alternating back and forth, so stranding up, like thinking about it as being stranding up between stitches, and in one row doing it here and then the next doing it here and going back and forth. See, this one, I kind of looped it around. I don't like that as much. I like the lifting it straight up, which I did here. That's the end of the stitch, and then I lifted it straight up and stranded around to the wrong side. And then again, on the very next row, I again lifted it straight up and stranded around to the wrong side. If I were starting over, I would use an inlay technique. However, I would use the actual Roositud or Roosimine or inlay technique that does not secure the yarn, never knits with the inlaid yarn. I think it's a better choice because you can tension the stripes after you finish the knitting. When you try to tension the stripes while the yarn's still on the needles, I don't think it works very well. I had a friend who did this and she was getting holes where the securing stitches were. I think that's the same problem I had. I don't think it was that I did the short rows quite as badly as I thought, but I would use the full inlay technique and not secure the stitches of the inlaid yarn. I'm not really sure how to work this yarn in.